As technology has greatly increased access to information in the 21st century, the way education is conducted has begun to change as well. One such change is the move to a more student-centered approach. Student-centered learning is a style that focuses on the needs of a student and his or her learning community. Internet access has allowed new possibilities in promoting a learning environment outside the physical classroom. Communications and collaboration between instructors and students themselves have become easier through tools such as email and social networking. This documentary aims to obtain a student perspective on the pros and cons of student-centered approaches and the possibilities provided to education by internet and technology.
It seemed to be more of an independent work where the teacher becomes more of a mentor and students are allowed to investigate on their own.
Student-centered learning would be focusing on the students' needs rather than what the teacher wants the students to perform or do. It's what do the students need to perform or do.
Students kind of dictating where they're going in their research, but the professor is there to keep them in check so they don't go like completely off base or just kind of make incorrect assumptions or whatnot.
Normally I just email them because then I can look back at exactly what we said rather than trying to remember exactly what we said. And
with my advisor face-to-face, as well as contact with them through email.
Because if I have questions and they give me an answer and another question might come up from that answer, it's a lot easier to do it either face-to-face, over the phone, or even if you have some kind of Skype setup.
You know, both have their pros and cons. I mean, working with face-to-face, there's the whole element of body language, and you're able to easily convey something, as opposed to email. You know, you have maybe some diagrams or pictures that you attach beforehand.
Ultimately, it's always going to be, at some extent, the professor, but I mean, it's a variable standard, right? Like, I mean, if everyone does poorly, no one's no longer doing poorly, because there's always still going to be someone at the top.
It's a shared responsibility. There are tasks that the teachers can always improve on to increase student performance, and students have to be held accountable for their own performance as well.
It's got to be both the student and the teacher, because if the teacher is not providing the resources and the proper information and the proper guidance, and they're just as culpable.
But at the same time, I mean, the ultimate person who's responsible for their achievement is the individual.
Academia is a place where you can make mistakes, or where if you hit a roadblock, you have people to help you find the answer. And I think that's more so how the professor is going to be. They're the answer person.
to learn fundamentals, you need more of a teacher-centered or just like existing knowledge, center approach.
As far as just conveying the basic information, I mean, you have all these resources online that you can get just the basic information, but that you understand it properly and that you're applying it properly, you're going to need someone who has that background.
I would say standardized tests and the pressure teachers feel to have students perform on assessments and things.
That was the same barrier that's always existed, whether the student has capacity to do the work and understand it, and whether they understand how they should be applying it.
There's a couple of them. First of all is motivation, You know, if a professor tells you, I want you to learn about this, and a person's not really interested in it, then it's going to be really difficult for a person to really sit down and be like, okay, I got to learn about this, I got to focus on it.
Higher education is, by definition, it needs to be structured. At the point where you break it down and everything becomes arbitrary, everything's arbitrary and nothing really matters. So if you're trying to progress towards that in the classroom, I mean, you need to be able to draw the line between the point where, you know, I need to turn this paper in on Tuesday, and, you know, like, I can turn in this paper whenever I want.
The idea that the professor is supposed to have enough knowledge, not only of the subject that they're teaching or that's being studied, but of the students and their interests and their motivations and their background.
But when I don't really have like a physical presence or like a physical, like someone really telling me to go do it, it starts to get kind of difficult.
The need for students to interact with one another on a personal basis and learn from one another in that setting is a lot more difficult if you move to an online format. It's always going to be sort of two-dimensional in that sense.
Technology today allows students more freedom to learn independently, away from the instructor and on their own terms. However, the role of the instructor is not disappearing. As our research shows, there is still a need for the role of the instructor, as students desire some structure in the learning environment. In any case, responsibility for learning has always and will always be shared between students and instructors. In the future, learning will be a mix of student and instructor-led approaches. Thank you for watching this presentation on education in the 21st century.